In our paper, we look at part-time employment. In particular, we look at wage growth in part-time compared to full-time employment. So it has been known in economics throughout several studies that the wage growth in part-time is much lower than it is compared to full-time. And in our study, in the first step, we show, well, does that fact hold in Germany in the time period from 1992 to 2018? And we do find that the wage growth is much lower than it is compared if you would have been working full-time. Then in a second step in our paper, we ask individuals if they are aware of this poor wage growth in part-time. And they are not. So we find a bias. And this is in particular important for women, as in Germany, a high share of the employment among women is actually part-time. So this poor growth in wages in part-time employment leads to lower lifetime incomes, which leads to lower pensions, which leads to gender pension gaps and gender income gaps in general. So having established that people are not aware of it, we ask as a last step in the paper, well, what is the economic consequence of that? So we use a model to quantify the effect of this bias and find that it has large effects on the labor supply and on the lifetime earnings of women. We use the socioeconomic panel, which is a panel study conducted since 1984 at the German Institute for Economic Research, the DIW. And it interviews every year and ensures that the sample remains representative throughout demographic variables, but also with respect to regional variation in Germany. The surveys are conducted every year. The survey tries to keep the same people inside the survey. So there are particular people, they are surveyed every year, but there are also new people coming in every year to ensure the representativeness of the sample. Our key findings are that, first of all, wage growth in part-time is much lower than it is in full-time. Second, that individuals are not aware of this. And this has important consequences, in particular for women, as the share of part-time employed women among employed women is very high in Germany compared to other OECD countries. And then in a last step, we show that if looking at policies which try to foster female employment, for example, the introduction of individual taxation, these biases play a large role. So the introduction of individual taxation would be a new policy for the taxation of couples. Right now, couples in Germany file their taxes jointly, which imposes a large marginal tax rate for the secondary earner, mostly women. What that means is, well, given the current income, if the second earner starts to earn more, she pays a very high tax on that additional income, which gives a large disincentive to actually work. So we look in our study at the introduction of individual taxation, so partners are taxed independently, and we find that this effect, this policy has in fact a large effect on labor supply over the lifetime and lifetime income. But we also find that if people would be fully informed, so if they would actually know about the monetary cost of choosing part-time because they will earn less money in the future, the effects of such a policy would be even larger because women would start choosing full-time much more than part-time and therefore would have the higher lifetime incomes and higher pensions. So in our study, we do cover this channel of the monetary costs of being part-time employed. What we don't cover is, for example, the scarcity of childcare. And so right now in our study, women do choose part-time because they have a high preference for that. But this preference actually covers, as I said, scarcity of childcare and other factors. So if you actually would try to get at the full possible effects of a reform such as individual taxation, one would need to complement such reforms with the extension of childcare and actually allowing every woman to choose freely how they want to supply their labor. In doing so, and with accountants of the monetary cost, we would get a much larger increase of lifetime income throughout a policy like individual taxation.